Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And just when you think things can't get any worse following Chelsea this season, then yesterday happens, the 1-0 defeat to Wolves. And quite honestly, I think the worst of the lot this season. It was a dreadful performance. All the optimism pre-game of Frank Lampard back in charge as caretaker manager, 804 days after his last game in charge of Chelsea. It was dampened pretty much 10-15 minutes into that game. An absolute disaster. No one played well at all. The only person that could probably come out of that game with a semblance of credit is Wesley Fofana. Other than that, no one else did anything. Everyone just had an absolute disaster. The front line was awful. Kai Havertz was non-existent. Sterling offered absolutely nothing. And the guys that came off the bench, Mudryk, Aubameyang, etc., nothing. Absolutely nothing. Same with Christian Pulisic. No one offered anything. And look, I think we're fully aware that we weren't expecting Lampard to come in and work miracles, but it certainly gave the fans a lift, the announcement. I thought it might give the players just a tiny lift. They actually looked even worse. They actually looked even worse to me. Like that game, the last two games, we could have had Graham Potter in charge. Like it would have been exactly the same. So yeah, I don't know where Chelsea go from here. It's obviously 4 wins in our last 21 Premier League games now, which, to be honest, that's relegation form. I mean, thankfully we picked up a few points. Thankfully we went unbeaten in Potter's first nine games, and we picked up a few wins under Tuchel. Otherwise, joking aside, we would have been in a relegation scrap. We would have been in a relegation scrap. Simple as that. And this is relegation form. But there were things that, Lampard didn't get right yesterday. The back four was, for my opinion, I've got no idea why he did that. I don't know why he thought after 2 days he could come in and switch the formation and think he'd get something out of it, when for large parts of this season we've played a back four and it's been a complete and utter disaster. So I'm not really sure why he changed that. Yes, all right, the back three was still lost games, but it suits us much better. And we've looked slightly more like a football team using the back three. So yeah, all in all, a terrible day, and things don't get easier because we go to Madrid on Wednesday. But that's another story. Ollie, an all too familiar story for Chelsea yesterday. But for you, would you agree? Was that the worst of the season? There's quite a few to pick from, though.
There's a lot to pick from. I mean, talk about out of the frying pan and into the fire, right? We drop Potter, and Bruno has his 1 game in charge. Then we've got Lampard. We expect a bit of a performance, at least something to denote that there's effort. There wasn't really. There was a lot that went wrong. I think this is one of the games of the season where I had a higher expectation, and so to be so disappointed, it does feel like one of the worst performances of the season. In reality, it probably wasn't quite as bad as everyone says it is, I don't think. But certainly Southampton, bottom of the league, was definitely worse. Spurs might have been worse. Fulham might have been worse. West Ham could have been worse. So there's a lot of options. Even Villa could have been worse as well. So there, I'm a little more hesitant to say that we're absolutely at rock bottom, but certainly doesn't look good, does it?
No, we're in big trouble. I think the worst thing for me is that I can't see where we win any games.
And tough games left, haven't we? With I think our best options are Bournemouth, our bogey team, and Forest, who beat us before. So
yeah. I mean, you look. That's the big concern. You look at the running. Obviously, remove the Real Madrid games aside, but we've got Brighton at home next weekend. A bloody good side. We've got Brentford to play at home as well. We've got to go to Arsenal still. We've got to go to Man City. We've got to go to Man United. We've got Newcastle at home on the last day of the season, and we've got Nottingham Forest who will be fighting for their lives. And we know at Stamford Bridge, we've won 4 games out of 14 there this season. So
I think they just need some belief. That's the thing. I think some belief would go a really long way with some of these players in the squad currently. It feels like everything they do is devoid of confidence. And so if Frank can get a little bit of confidence back in, if we win 1 game, my goodness, that will help. I really do think so. Look at Liverpool today, for example. They had a bit of belief. They got the fans behind them at Anfield, and they drew with league leaders Arsenal. And they're having a season quite similar to us. Now, by that logic, it means, in theory, if you've got enough belief, if the fans get behind you, you can beat or, at least go toe-to-toe with anybody. But this season, the mentality's in the gutter. I don't see where that's actually, I don't see where we're going to find that belief from. Especially if we go out to Real Madrid in the Champions League, which we very much could.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just thought there might be, something. I thought there might be something in terms of just a little bit of a lift. You think Lampard's run plays. You see all the pictures going out on socials. In training, everyone's got a smile on their face. Lampard's back. It's all great, and that people look happy. And yet, you get to the game, and there was nothing from any of the players. There gets to a certain point where it doesn't matter who's on the sideline and who's motivating you. If you can't demand a bit more out of yourself, it's going to go absolutely nowhere. And I don't know where are the standards on the pitch. Who's thinking, shit, guys, this is unacceptable. We need to get more out of each other here. Where's that spine? Where are those leaders that are demanding more? And I think you might have tweeted it, mate, or I've definitely seen it somewhere. Is that we spent all this money, we've not got a spine in the team.
Yeah, I did say that.
Yeah. And I think it's spot on, because I don't want to sound like we're broken record going back to the good old times, but every good team has a spine, and we don't have a spine. We haven't got a Premier League winning goalkeeper. Kepa's a good goalkeeper, but he's not a goalkeeper that's going to win you a Premier League. Over a course of a season, he'll cost you more points than he saves you. That's just the reality of the situation.
Does that make him a good goalkeeper then? Oh, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
I think he's a good goalkeeper, but he's not a title winning goalkeeper. He's not a goalkeeper that's going to win you the Premier League.
I think that is certainly true. At the very least.
I think over a season he'll cost you more points than he'll save you. And that for me is the reality of the situation. Then Thiago Silva is a leader, but he's not. You can't really build a spine through him because he's on his way out. Yep. Yeah. And then, all right, Enzo Fernandez will be part of the spine, but I think you look at a spine, you need a really good holding midfield player. When you look at successful Chelsea teams of the past, we've had Makelele there, we've had Essien there, we've had Mikel there, Matic as well. So that's missing as well. And then we're also missing a standout player in the forward positions, like an Eden Hazard, like we had. And we're missing a goal scorer, whether it's a Diego Costa or whether it's a Didier Drogba. So despite spending all this money, we still don't have three really key positions on the pitch that are addressed. I mean, we can't just put it all down to that, because the money we spent and the quality of players we got, we should be doing much better than we are. But how much of a concern to you is it that seemingly so far that we've spent this money, we'll spend more in the summer as well, there'll be a mass clear out, but there's no spine and there's no one demanding more from each other on the pitch. It's almost like they're quite happy to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah, it seems like the squad planning has been really poor, and when people talk about the squad planning, they tend to either go at, the old regime with Roman and Marina and co, or the new regime with Bowley and co. But actually, I think the reality is it's both of their faults. You've got the likes of Marina and Roman, etc., who didn't want to renew Christensen and Rudiger, and then we got sanctioned and it led them to leave. And unfortunately, we, despite not being actually that bad in terms of what we got as centre back, we had to spend 135 million on that. So it meant we couldn't rejuvenate the spine. But then when Bowley and co went on a bit of a spending spree, they didn't rejuvenate the spine either, and they certainly could have done, and they just didn't. For me, it's a bit like I think I tweeted this as well. It's a bit like your plan is to build a car, but you ignore the wheels, the steering wheel, the engine, and the battery, and you make sure you've got 15 wing mirrors, go faster stripes, and fuzzy dice. It's all well and good, and it looks kind of cool, and bit surplus to requirements, but actually the functionality is just not there. And I think that's, it seems that it's partly a mentality issue, whether it's just confidence or whether it's actually the players being a bit lackadaisical and a bit lazy. I don't know. Only they'll know that really. Or whether it's they feel like it's certainly in the league, there's nothing else to play for. So going to give that 5-10% less so you don't get injured for the Champions League game. I don't know. But certainly it feels like the squad is just not where it needs to be, ability-wise, effort-wise. I think some of our players are distinctly average and we overpaid massively for them as well. And we'll get into that when we do the player ratings. But I think the most difficult part is you ask yourself, where do we go from here? because we've got Lampard for the rest of the season now, who we know is no tactical genius. But, the idea is for him to hopefully build a little bit of momentum and build a little bit of something, belief, confidence to bring back into these players. And I also hope on the side, he's going back to Bowley and Igbali and saying, look, this is the people who are giving the effort. This is the people who aren't. This is who needs to stay and this is who needs to go. That's kind of the only thing that really makes Lampard's appointment worth it.
Can he have much say in that, considering he's literally only here for the rest of the season? And surely any new manager that's going to come in is going to want to assess everyone, and he'll have his own ideas of who should stay and who should go. So surely that
quite
decision,
right.
Surely that decision, like, all right, Lampard could say X, Y, Z, but how much weight does that opinion hold when a new guy's coming in who is going to have different ideas? Now, I think we know that the likes of your Ziyech, your Pulisic, etc., are probably going to be moved on. And I don't think any incoming Chelsea manager is going to be wanting to keep them. But at the same time, when you're in a position where you're literally, it's very clear you're here for 10 games and that's it. Yes, the aim is to get, like, obviously the fans back on side, etc., get them kind of rejuvenated, re-engaged, and hopefully give the players a bit of a lift, someone that knows a club inside out. But you could also look at it the flip side, right? These players, why? I mean, they're not. I wouldn't ever look at it like this, but we know we've not got the best of characters in the dressing room. Why would you listen to someone who isn't going to be, who is not going to be here? And what, like, all right, yeah.
And this is what I was getting at, is this is the only way that Lampard's tenure can actually hold any weight over the players, is if he actually tells them, look, I'm going to be, telling everyone upstairs who deserves to stay and who doesn't. So you put your effort in and prove you want to stay. And if you don't, there's a good chance you'll go. That's the only way that because otherwise, you're right. Why would the players run for Lampard? What would be the actual point?
Well, yeah, well, exactly. This is my point. I mean, look, as a professional, like, what regardless of what you think the manager is like or how good you think they are, it is your basic courtesy to listen to what they tell you to do, because that's your job. You're paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week to do the best job in the world, which so many people want to do, but so few can actually do. The least you can do is actually listen to the manager and give your all on the pitch. And that's not happening. I'm not saying it's everyone. I'm sure some players are listening to the manager, but when it gets onto the pitch, not everyone's pulling their weight. And
you're exactly right. And
it's quite obvious with the results we've had.
We're in a situation where Chelsea can't afford to be having passengers. Because our A team, isn't necessarily good enough to beat anyone at the moment, let alone our B team, like we put out against Wolves. So we can't afford to be having any passengers, but our team is 40, 50, 60, 70% passengers. Players who don't directly influence the game. So it just makes it so difficult. And we've got so many of these players as well who play sort of hybrid positions, different positions. If I was going to cut the players any slack, I'd say half of them are probably very confused about where they're supposed to play half the time.
Do you think that's hard? Do you think that's part of the reason, like part of the issue with signing players? It's always great, and I've gone on about it as well, so I'm not going to excuse myself here. That it's great to sign players who are versatile, because it fills multiple positions with one player. But at the same time, I think having too many versatile players can actually be a hindrance. And I often think it would actually be better if we just had players that played in their fucking position, rather than all these guys that can play left, can play right, can play second striker, can play 9. Let's just have players that play in a position and they play there. It's all right to have one or two of those in the squad that can be versatile across the front line,
because it's useful for tactical flexibility.
But we've got every single person, bar Aubameyang, in the front line is quote unquote versatile and can play across the front line.
And all that means is they're a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that, and in the Premier League and in the Champions League, these fine margins matter. So playing sort of that consistency and playing ourselves into that consistency is so important. But 3 managers, 4 managers technically, countless formations, different tactics, tinkering every week, with the managers that we did actually have for a long time in this season. I'm not sure I mean, at the very least, the entire front line must be confused about where they're going to play. If you're, say, and I'm not the biggest fan of Felix or Havertz or Sterling really, but if you're any of those three, you think, right, on Saturday, am I playing centre forward, false nine, second striker, left wing, right forward, right attacking mid? Like there's all these kind of there's all these positions that they can take up. And like we said, it's okay if you've got a handful of them because it's good for tactical flexibility. Someone like Azpilicueta, when we, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when we had
right back.
Yeah, played left back, right back, even played in as a centre back really well and kept his career going and massively, kept his career longevity at Chelsea on what it was, being that sort of Mr. 7 out of 10. The problem is if you've got a player who is really versatile in several positions, they're not going to be 7 out of 10 in all of them. That's quite a rare thing. It's why Azpilicueta was praised for so long. It's why Mount was praised for so long. But actually, you've got someone like Havertz who's a 5 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 in most of the positions he plays in. So actually, it goes to that point where not only are they a hindrance to themselves because they don't know where they're going to play, that they're also they're also confusing their teammates because their teammates don't get to build any chemistry with them playing in that specific position. And it just cascades from there. It ripples out and just becomes this huge, great, big problem. And like I say, it leads to players becoming passengers, and we don't need passengers. These positionless players, couple of them useful, but the squad's full of them, absolutely full of them. You've got Felix, Havertz, and Kunku's coming in. You've got,
I was going to say,
even, you could say Reece James is somewhat of one because he plays centre back as well. Loftus-Cheek, Cucurella, these are Gallagher and Mount as well. These are far too many players to change their position or change their tactics or their formation with every single week because they're not going to know what they're doing. It's quite simple in that sense, in that, you're just trying to do too much. And this whole season, we've been trying to do too much.
Yeah, I'd agree. Before I get on to my next point, I'm just going to get to a few things in the chat. By the way, guys, keep hitting the likes on the stream. We need to get past 20 pretty swiftly. So need 5 more of those you to smash the likes. So guys, keep hitting the likes. Not difficult job to do, and it really helps me out. So please do that. Let me get to some bits in the chat then, people. Yes, Dar, thanks for tuning in, mate. Always great to dissect a disaster class on a Sunday evening. That's what we do best. It's pretty much been that every week of the season.
Could be worse. At least we'd all, maybe some of us don't have to go back to work tomorrow because of the long weekend.
Yeah,
so.
There is that as well. So we've got an extra day to sit on it. Yeah, Chelsea,
to dwell.
worst performance. Look, I'd probably say Southampton was slightly worse than Wolves, but at the same time, I think the Wolves one is definitely in the top 3. It was awful.
I think there was a lot of expectations for this game, and I think that
made it worse. Yeah, mate. The worst thing is that I was going up in the car thinking, do you know what? We might actually win today. I feel like reasonably good.
I thought that way in the morning, and you know what?
And
I don't mean to sound.
Shouldn't do it to myself.
Yeah, I know. I was actually thinking the same. I thought that when I woke up in the morning. I thought Chelsea have got a good chance of winning today. Wolves aren't all that slick. They're struggling. Maybe we'll try out some new ideas and see what sticks. Maybe get a lucky goal or something, and we do well. But the second I saw the lineup, I knew we were in for a long day. And you can check that on my Twitter if you don't believe me. I'll go back to it. And I was saying this is a horrible, horrible lineup and everything that was wrong with it. And lo and behold, we did lose. But I wish we didn't. I wish I was wrong, but I wasn't.
No, mate. When Chelsea should close out the league with all youth players. I mean, we're not going to do that. But I mean, to be fair,
until we're
mathematically
safe from relegation, I don't think we can. Yeah. But it would be nice to. It certainly would be nice to. I think we're on something like 39 points now.
Yeah, mate. We still haven't reached 40 points. So.
Yeah. So I mean, I reckon at some point we might get a lucky draw in the rest of our games.
Yeah.
I think we'll be safe this season. But it's when you're having these conversations when the previous season you're talking about Champions League and top 4 and all that, it's quite demoralizing.
I think it's important to clarify as well that we were on a downward spiral under Tuchel as well. I'm not saying we would have been this bad if he'd stayed, but I fully believe that challenging for the top 4 would have been a big ask as well. I think we would have been 6th or 7th under him because it was going in that direction.
And can you imagine the outrage?
Exactly.
Can you imagine the outrage sitting 6th after all the money was spent? And now that would be a pipe dream for all of us.
Yeah, mate, I'd love a 6th place now. James is not a right back. Cucurella's not a left back in a flat 4. He's either a left-sided centre back in a 3 or he plays wing back. I don't know why.
And to be honest, he's not very good at either of them.
I mean, he was good at them at Brighton, and I think there is a good player there. But I think going back to your point again, the versatility and the constant chopping and changing of players, this is not helping Cucurella because 1 week he's playing left side of a 3, the next week he's playing as a left wing back, the week after that he's then playing as a left back and a 4, then he's back to playing left side of a 3.
Like, and then even in all of those games, the tactics are different. One of them he might have to invert in midfield, and one of them he might need to overlap and bomb on into the attacking third. So he's being asked to do a million different things.
And this is why I've got a bit
problem
more...
it's what Bruce Lee said, didn't it? He said, I don't fear the man who practiced 1,000 kicks once, but the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times. Yeah. And that's what we should be doing. At the moment, we're doing the complete opposite. We're practicing 1,000 kicks once, which is the wrong approach totally. We need to be practicing one kick 1,000 times. Get everyone up to speed, have that cohesion. It doesn't matter, if people's favourites get left out at this point, because what is there left for in the season beyond the Champions League?
Exactly.
So I think at this point, I think players have got to play on merit, and that was the slightly frustrating thing about Frank's first game back, is that actually I don't think that was the case. I don't expect him to get that right straight away. No, but I was expecting to see some players I wasn't expecting to see some players, and I was expecting to see others, and I was disappointed.
Mate, if we're picking players on merit, no, we're not fielding a team.
Yeah, we've got about 4 players.
We'd have about 4. We'd have about 4 players to be picked. Harvey Vale is not on loan at the moment. He was recalled from Hull City. I think he's just playing in the 21s or whatever.
Yeah, I think he's just in the academy.
I'll be honest. He's not. I don't think he's that good. I'll be totally honest. He's not good enough to play for the Chelsea first team. I've said it. There it is. He's not good enough. Simple as that.
Kind of with you. Hasn't set the world on fire wherever he's
gone.
No,
he hasn't.
You look at someone like Ian Maatson and the season he's having at Burnley. It is also about marrying it up.
It's a better team as well.
Yeah, it's about marrying it up and making sure the loan is right. But at the same time, you've got to be able to influence it, and he just kind of hasn't. Same with Baxter. Maybe Hull was just a poor choice. Maybe Vale needs another loan. That is what it is.
Yeah, this is true, mate. We don't know where a point's coming from. I don't know. It's not over exaggerating to say that I can't see where our next points in the league come from. And that's not an over-exaggeration to this result. It's a genuine thing. 4 wins in 21 Premier League games. That goes to tell you that we don't know where the points are coming from. And points are rare at the moment. And
that just shows as well the confidence is in the gutter. Partly, you can blame the squad planning. Partly you can blame Graham Potter. You can blame the players. You can blame the owners. You can blame the previous ownership. You can blame the fans. You can blame everyone under the sun. I think everyone's kind of at fault. I think it's just this season has just been an absolutely calamitous disaster from start to end. And at every single opportunity where an important decision needed to be made, the wrong one was made, and that just is what it is.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Let's get to a few things here. Yeah, I mean, Willian Costa Pedro wasn't so bad now. To be fair, I would have taken Costa yesterday. He actually did an all right job for Wolves.
Yeah, played all right for Wolves,
mate. It's just. Do you know what it is, mate? It's just having a physical presence at the top end of the pitch. And people go on about that Kai's quite good in the air and stuff, and he wins battles. He doesn't. He wins fuck all. He wins a few here and there, but he's not what you'd call a physical presence. Someone that holds the ball up, someone that brings
more
others
than you would
play.
Expect him to win, but you wouldn't expect him to win any. So
exactly. Exactly. I mean, let's have a look at this. I watched Leeds versus Palace match earlier, and the Leeds players were giving it their all at 5-1 down and 5 minutes to go. You certainly wouldn't get that from us. No chance. And do you know what the depressing thing is now?
I don't think you'd get that at 1-0 down with 5 minutes gone.
No, I think, do you know what the depressing thing is now? With those 5 goals, Palace have now got the same amount of Premier League goals as us. We're both.
They have indeed.
We're both on 29 goals, and Roy Hodgson has managed to get a team to score 5 goals in a match.
Big up, Roy.
Mate, did we score 5 goals? Have we scored 5 goals in a month yet this year? I don't think
we might have in a month. Yeah.
Maybe. I know we have. Yeah, we did. In March,
last month, didn't we? Yeah, in March we won.
We haven't scored. We haven't scored.
3 goals or something.
We haven't scored 5 goals this month. That's for sure. No. The last
very
3
much
games,
back to February form.
Yeah, I mean the last 3 games we haven't even scored.
Yeah, I do worry about how some of the new players feel about this. Thinking, what on earth have we gotten into?
Let's just get into this. Let me see if there's anything more in the chat, which I'll get to. I will get back to this in the player ratings. I feel a bit bad skipping some of it, but I'll get back to it. Mate, I don't know what your expectations were at the start of the season, but I certainly don't think that anyone was expecting it to be as bad as it has gone. I'm just going to
Who
bring up
could?
some of the numbers here. So Chelsea in the Premier League this season, more games than goals. So 30 played, 29 goals, more defeats than wins, 11 and 10, -2 goal difference. Now, I feel for me, since my time following Chelsea, which is obviously a lot less than some people, but this is the worst Chelsea team I've ever seen in my time as a fan. Not
I
in
would
terms
actually
of
say the same. Probably mine
not
too.
not not in terms of quality of squad, but just in terms of what's happening on the pitch.
Yeah, in terms
And
of results and
in
effort,
terms of this also must be one of the worst runs that a Chelsea team's ever been on in history. I think you struggle to find many other Chelsea teams, and I'm sure if someone's got the time in the chat to go back and find a Chelsea team that has been on a worse run than this one or how long it's been. But 4 wins in 21, that's got to be the worst Premier League run of a Chelsea side ever. This is the worst Chelsea side I've certainly ever watched. But
I
I
mean, it's
mean,
certainly the worst since what became 10th in Mourinho's second season.
yeah, but but
even that was, there
but
was
even
like
but
it
even
was a bit of a
before
mess, but
Roman though, but even
interesting.
before Roman, we were winning FA Cups. We were finishing
Oh
in the
yeah,
top 6. We
yeah.
were winning European trophies, Cup Winners' Cups, etc. Like
Like the late
it,
90s, we were still a force. I know. The meme is that Chelsea existed in sort of only started existing in 2003, but we were a force before that. We just got the money in 2003, 4. That was the difference.
yeah,
Um,
we still picked trophies up.
yeah, absolutely, and that's all. But this season, if you told me at the very start of the season that we were going to win a trophy, I'd say, yeah, that sounds about right, because I would have expected that, because we had
Yeah,
Thomas Tuchel, we had new owners, ambitious owners who wanted to build with the squad. But it just seems like, maybe they've tried to do things too quickly. Maybe they've tried to do too much too fast. Maybe there's been
yeah.
too much
I mean,
transition. Yeah, all I hope is that our suffering is down to one season and Bowley hasn't amortized it over several seasons. That's all I can hope for.
to be fair, mate, I mean, I can't see how things get significantly better next season. I really
Yeah,
don't.
you might say that now, but a
I
few
mean,
wins go our way.
yeah,
You never know. A
it
year's
does
a long
depend.
time.
It does depend, but I mean, let's get this back to yesterday. Um, why why do you think Lampard went with a 4? Because that was the main thing. I'm listening to the radio on the way back home as well. All the Chelsea fans that were phoning in were saying the same thing. All the fans at the ground were saying the same thing. Why do you think Lampard decided to go with a 4? Because it just didn't make any sense whatsoever. Yes, it's his preferred formation. It's what he used a couple of years ago here. A lot's changed since a couple of years ago here. We're far, far worse then. We've got a lot of different players. And as I said at the top of the show, we've seen this season, we've played the back four for vast majorities of the season. It didn't work. And whatever people think of Graham Potter, he's a better manager than Frank Lampard. So, it's no, I don't understand why he thought in 2 days that he could switch the formation and get something out of these players. I mean, why do you think he went with the 4? Because I can't come up with any reason other than thinking that, let's just do something different because whatever we've done this season has been shit. Or he actually thinks that in the 10 games he's here, he can get the 4 to work. I don't really know.
Maybe it could also be coming down from up top. There was part of the reason Tuchel was sacked is because the owners wanted to play at 4 at the back, and Potter started with the 4 at the back, and then it sort of fell apart, and he had to resign himself to going back to 3 at the back, and it worked for a little bit, and then it didn't. But yeah, I mean, like if it's not a decision like that, it's baffling, especially with the with the personnel that he chose as well. Really, really strange selections. We'll get into it, but looking at the likes of playing Cucurella as a left back in a back 4, playing Koulibaly as left centre back in a 2, all you're doing is asking for trouble. They're both defensively quite panicky. They're both, you can't rely on them. And playing in a 3 actually benefits both of them really well because it allows them to cover for each other's errors, and it allows there to be an extra player on the left to overlap and on the right to cover for them. So it just seems that it seemed a bit naive from Frank, if I am frank about it. It just seemed a bit like he thought he could come in and change it immediately, be a bit cute with it. Maybe it's also about picking who he thought was best for availability, for fitness before the Real Madrid game, maybe.
I get it.
I don't think we can afford to not be playing our best team right now.
I mean, I understand why Kante was left out of the squad. I perhaps really maybe should have been on the bench. I don't think maybe leaving him out of the squad entirely was necessary, but ultimately, I don't think him playing would have actually made an awful lot of difference to our performance in terms of actually winning the game. I can understand why Chilwell was kind of on the bench. You've got another decent option in Cucurella there, but I just think in every asset you assess playing the back four with the squad that we've got, it doesn't tick any boxes for me.
No, it doesn't even help attacking wise because
no, it doesn't. It makes Reece James and Chilwell worse. Yeah, it makes them worse. It pushes them further back, makes it harder for them to influence the game. It means that the defenders that we are playing are their mistakes are more easily exposed because there's no one else covering. We haven't got an out and out holding midfield player. Yes, I know Enzo can.
And that's
I know Enzo can. I know Enzo can play as a 6, but he's not. His best position is not a 6.
He's like a 6-8 hybrid, really, isn't he?
You want him higher up the pitch to be more effective.
Yeah.
And then you've got Gallagher, who look. I like Conor Gallagher. Look, whether he's Chelsea quality or not, I suspect probably not. But one thing that he will give you is energy, and he will put a shift in. You can't hold that against him.
Let's be honest. The only reason he was playing was because Mount was injured.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, for sure. And Kante was being rested. But it gives you energy and he runs about. And people can kind of knock that or whatever, but it's a lot more than a lot of the Chelsea players do. So we could at least praise him for that. But yeah, it just doesn't tick any boxes. It just doesn't tick any boxes at all. And I'm really concerned if Frank was using this as a warm-up to test for Madrid. Because if we go to the Bernabeu with a 4, Jesus, God help us, because it would be an absolute mess. We even played a 3 there last season, and he played Reece James at right centre back. And I remember saying this after the Aston Villa game when Potter played Reece at centre back. I said after the game, look, I didn't like it, but I suspect that he was thinking about Real Madrid. Reece hadn't played at right centre back in a 3 since the Bernabeu last year. He was maybe testing him out there, getting him some minutes there with the view to playing him in that back 3 in the Bernabeu. Now, I know this year you've got Wesley Fofana. We didn't have Fofana, so that maybe makes that slightly void. But I still think though that was part of the thinking as to why Reece played there. But let's be honest, the 4 is just a disaster.
Especially
it doesn't make us good anywhere. It makes
anywhere on the pitch.
We're not a good team as it is right now. We're awful. When you're awful, the one thing you want to try and do is at least try and play to your strengths. So you're slightly less shit.
Yeah,
playing
absolutely.
to a 4 makes all our strengths worse and exposes our weaknesses even more.
But it's so strange to do it, even with when we've got no holding midfielder, because that midfield was very attacking. Maybe Frank wanted a shootout or something. I don't know, but it certainly wasn't how it ended up. It was chaotic. It was unbalanced. It was leaky. And that's really not what you want when you've got Koulibaly and Cucurella who are already nervous in the back line, not really being adequately protected by anybody. It's what do you expect when you play a lineup like you played? What do you expect?
Yeah, no, this is exactly it. This is exactly it. I mean, to be honest, there's not even that much to go into in the game because we didn't do anything. We had one effort on target. I think that was Aubameyang's header that just I don't even know if it was Aubameyang's header.
Aubameyang did a header, but I don't know if it was on target.
Well, anyway, we had one shot on target in the whole game.
But what a shot it was! Remember that shot? How brilliant! Oh yes.
Yeah. I can't recall that shot because.
And you were there.
Yeah. I don't know what that shot was. Absolutely no idea. I mean, it's not memorable anyway, and it doesn't matter because we lost. So. Who have had that shot on target? It doesn't really matter.
It was probably a Kai Havertz header from about 40 yards out that dribbled towards the keeper at 2 miles an hour.
Yeah, mate, that wouldn't surprise me. We'll get into the game a bit more in the ratings. What were your thoughts on Lampard's comments after the game? Because it's a stark contrast to kind of what we used to hear from Graham Potter about the lads giving everything after every game, even though they clearly hadn't. And obviously Lampard speaks in a different way to Potter. He knows what it's like to represent this club. And look, I liked his comments. I think he speaks very well. But ultimately, I don't care how well you speak. You're judged on your results. You're not judged on how you speak. But it was refreshing to hear. And I think he knows that. I mean, what did you make of his comments? Because he was talking about, obviously, a lack of aggression, which I think we know is a problem. And he was also talking about the fact that not enough of these guys know what it means to wear the badge. And that's a bit of a concern for me that not enough of these players seemingly know what it means to play for the club. Now,
It
I'm
does
sure we've
feel
done
that
our.
way, doesn't it?
They don't seem to get it, and I don't expect players from foreign leagues to like get Chelsea in the same way as English players do, or lads that have come through the academy. But
At least not straight away.
no, but you're playing for a massive football club, and you're playing on the biggest stage, and no one seems to understand what it means to play for the club.
I know what you
Like,
mean. It
I
does
don't,
feel like we
I
only have
don't get
sort of
it.
like a handful of players who really know, or at least we think we really know that they want to be here and they want to try hard and they want Chelsea to succeed. And those aren't always necessarily our most talented players as well. It's
And this
important to
is
note
why,
that it seems that there is, this is where I was, and this is what I was saying for Potter months and months ago, as I said. You don't have the stats to tell us because they don't actually release the sort of like the distance covered stats in the Premier League. I realised, but they weren't running for Potter. They really weren't, and I could see that the effort wasn't there early on, and that is very frustrating to see that because for me it made it feel like they thought Potter was an easy ride, a bit of a substitute teacher vibe, but. And it kind of ended up being that way. With Frank, it's going to be different, and he's going to, at the very least, give the players a reminder of actually what it means to be a part of Chelsea. But it is a massive concern. There needs to be almost a bit of a cultural reset at Chelsea. People need to remember what it's like. It's win at all costs, be aggressive, defensively resolute, masterclass performances. It's not like it's something we haven't seen in years gone by. Look at the Champions League final in 2021. That was a classic Chelsea performance. Absolutely classic Chelsea performance. So I just feel like this season has got maybe the players really jaded, and there's not a lot to play for. The squad's too big. Everyone's competing. Probably not many people are really getting on all that well. The whole thing's in transition, so everything's up in the air. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody's pretending there's a plan. So maybe it's just that. Maybe it's about would you necessarily give effort, like give 100% effort in that scenario? I don't know. I don't think many people would, and so I think it's certainly. But that's why I think we brought Lampard in. Is now you've got the players who are, sort of frozen out on the fringes, have a chance to impress. They have a chance to be able to do something, and it's really disappointing that in the game they just didn't.
There was just nothing there. I mean, if you can't get a lift out of from a club legend, then we really are in big trouble. Because how is a Nagelsmann and Enrique or whoever it is going to be? How are they going to get a lift out of these players? And obviously the new manager thing, there's not really anything new to report on that. But I think we've got to be very aware that a new manager comes in the summer. Start of next season is not something going to be all rosy and we're going to be amazing. There's going to be more. There's going to be more of the same. Perhaps
More
not
transition.
perhaps not as extreme as what we've witnessed this season, but we're not going to suddenly go from finishing potentially bottom half this season to suddenly being back in a top four next season. Newcastle will get better again. United will continue to get better.
Liverpool might get better again.
Liverpool won't be this shit again. They'll be better next season. Tottenham, all right, we laugh about Tottenham, but they're still going to be there or thereabouts for the top four. So like when you have a season as bad as this, there's no guarantee that we're going to suddenly go back to competing for the top four. And we're better than we don't just want to aspire to be a team that plays to come fucking fourth.
That's not what we are. That's not what we want to be.
That's not what we want to be. But at the same time, we're an absolute million miles away from winning the league. And we haven't been anywhere near winning the league since we last won it. We haven't finished higher than third since we won the league under Conte. Each year, we're just getting further and further behind. And yes, I know we've won the Champions League. I know we've picked up some domestic cups here and there. But like the Premier League...
The league's the big one.
The league's the big one. The league's where it's like, yes, the cups are great, but the league is what you want to win. And right now, we're the furthest we've been from winning the league in a long time. Yes, we've got a squad full of talented players. Yes, we're going through transition, but it could take us another 3 or 4 years before we're actually near challenging for the title.
The one thing I will say about this all is that I don't think it will get worse next season.
No, I don't think it could be too much. But it could.
It will have a new manager. Things will be more stable. The squad will be smaller. There will be better chances for people to play on merit. There's going to be a lot more of a a level playing field for the players next season, it might just be a case of you're just going to have to wipe the slate clean and start again after the squad clear out and say it doesn't matter how we were last season. New season starts now. The new mentality starts now. Maybe that's the solution. I don't know.
I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's clear that we are set for a couple of seasons at least of transition. I think one thing's really important to remember, that every club goes through a period of transition. And I don't know why so many sections of the fan base think that this club is not allowed to go through transition or it's unacceptable. Like this idea that so many people feel so entitled that Chelsea should be guaranteed to have success every season. Yes, that's the aim, and yes, that's what we've done. But we've never gone through a down period. And now we are going through a down period, a transition period. We've seen Liverpool go through it. We've seen Arsenal go through it. United have gone through it. You know, teams go through down moments and go through transitions before coming back to the top again. And this maybe is going to be our time where we're in transition, and that maybe it won't be as long as other teams, but that has to be a reality and an acceptance.
Football is cyclical.
What? We might go through a couple of seasons where we don't win anything, and people can't be crying and throwing their toys out the pram if we don't win anything for a couple of seasons. Because if it means not winning anything for a couple of seasons, but it means that in the long term we're going to be in a better position to win a lot more, I think that's a small price to pay.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And football is cyclical. We will be back. It seems that a lot's happened in the last season, last year or so, for people not to put much faith in Bowley and Co. And I would agree with that. I don't have a huge amount of faith in them after this season either. But what we do know is they are assembling some of the best football minds. They are willing to spend and they are willing to be ambitious. That's all we can really ask for, at least at the start, while we are in this transitionary period. But truthfully, I think if we nail the manager, that's half the battle. I really think so, because the manager will be able to dictate, which players they want and don't want. That helps keep the squad small and keeps the tactics consistent, keeps the players happy, and allows performances to get better. It seems to just be a perfect storm this season of things that have gone wrong. But I don't think it will be this bad next season. It can't be. Please, for the love of God, it can't be.
No, no, it can't be. I mean, yeah, it just can't. It's a tricky one, though, isn't it? Really, it is. But at the same time, I look at Chelsea and I think we've got some bloody good players. We've got a squad that any manager in world football would like to work to work with. But for whatever reason, it's not clicking, and there's a few big pieces that are still missing.
And that's probably why. That's probably why it's not clicking.
It is. And I think it's, I don't know. Look, you certainly expect more than what we've been given this season. But when you bring in, I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses because I'm not, but when you bring in that volume of players, particularly mid-season, and you make a squad 30 plus man squad in training, you've got 11 versus 11 on one pitch, 9 versus 9 on another pitch. You've got not enough space in the changing room for everyone to get changed in. So some guys are getting changed outside of the changing rooms, like in some sort of corridor thing. And then you've put Graham Potter in charge, who is a guy that
wants to please everybody.
Wants to please everybody, but it's a guy that doesn't have the experience of working at a top level club or with that quality of player. And you're asking him to do all that in a scenario where even the best of managers would struggle. It's so hard to keep players happy, and it's even harder to keep players happy when you're doing really shit as well, because everyone thinks they should have a go because the results are so bad. It's a little bit easier when you're doing well, but I just think we asked an awful lot of Potter from a ridiculous set of circumstances that even the best of managers would have struggled with. And I'm not by any means excusing Potter because he didn't do well enough. It was appalling.
Well, it would have been sacked 4 times over. Roman.
It was appalling. But the point stands is that this is a scenario that I think a lot of people would have struggled in and would have failed in. And I almost feel that the longer it went on, you can look at Potter being brought in. I think he was maybe set up to fail. But in defense to the owners, what I would say is that when you're new to something and you come in at something and you're learning, you're going to get things wrong in the beginning. You only have to look at the Glazers got a lot wrong after Sir Alex Ferguson left. It took them a while to get the right man in. They tried Van Gaal, they tried Jose, they tried Ole.
Aranyak.
Ranić as well. Like they made a lot of mistakes also. And now with Ten Hag, they seem to have found the right guy and they're trying to get themselves back on track. FSG at Liverpool, everyone goes on about FSG, like, and they got Klopp in and they had some great success. Yeah, sure. But let's not forget, FSG appointed Roy Hodgson as Liverpool manager. You know, the owners make mistakes. And I think we have to accept that when you're new to something, like the first time you do something, you're going to be shit at it. Like anytime any of us do something for the first time, generally we're shit at it. And it's the same with owners. You're going to make mistakes in this situation when you don't really know what you're doing or you're new to a situation. So for me, I think the big thing is that
improvement on the owner's side.
It's improvement. But one thing, ambition, absolutely there. Willingness to invest in the squad, absolutely there. To spend money to bring the best players in, it's there. Footballing department to make the correct footballing decisions, it's there. Everything is in place now for Chelsea to do well, bar the manager at the moment. Everything's in place. And fair play to them. They've put that structure in place. And now let the football people do the football stuff and you take care of the business stuff. And I think that's the way it needs to be. And I think with Potter, they got it wrong. You know, they thought it was the right guy, but who was advising Bowley to go for Graham Potter? Because we had no football department in place, did we? That wasn't there. So who was making that decision? Because there's no way that Todd Bowley knew who Graham Potter was.
I know what you mean. It does feel that way, doesn't it? I think there's also something to be said about actually the difference between the summer and January was enormous. So so in retrospect, the summer deals were, on the most part, 80-90% dreadful. You got Potter, Cucurella, Koulibaly.
I think
people don't really rate Fofana was probably the only decent one. You could say Chukwuemeka as well, maybe Cassidy. But largely, you paid a lot of money for a lot of players who haven't done a whole lot. A lot of mistakes, especially sacking Tuchel in that interim as well. But January was a lot better. January we were looking at getting actually better quality players in. We were doing it for cheaper. It seemed like we were looking for the right kind of profiles for players that we needed for the squad, even though we were going for a lot of players. And they were still making a few mistakes here and there. Like, you could argue letting Jorginho go was one of them. You could argue that, I don't know, signing whoever, Madueke and Mudryk could be one of them. You never know. But there was definitely an increase in terms of, there was definitely an improvement in actually what happened in summer and what happened in January. So it was quite a large improvement actually. So given that, this summer should be better again. January window after that should be better again. The summer window after that should be even better again. And now we've got this system in place that will hopefully take us to the promised land, but we're not going to get there tomorrow. No. And so it's going to take some time. I have no doubt that Chelsea will be winning again, and everyone wants Chelsea to win. And every Chelsea fan wants Chelsea to win, and no one will want the Chelsea to win more than the owners because they've invested so much money.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, mate, just on this one, like thing in the chat, do you believe in this project, quote unquote? Because let's be honest, Chelsea have never been a project club. I mean, the intention might be to have a manager here for multiple years and to try and build something, but ultimately, it's always been quick fire, instant success. First sign of things going wrong, you're out the door. Someone else comes in. Do you believe in this? Do you believe in this new project? And do you have any confidence that the club's owners, the leadership team and whatnot have the ability to turn this around? I guess for me personally, I do believe in it and I can see things being put in place off the pitch. On the pitch, it's not happening just yet. But I do put my trust in people that are the best in class at what they do. So I put my trust in the owners to take care of the business side of things, because you don't become a billionaire and a successful businessman if you're stupid.
By mistake.
You don't. You can argue with some of their decisions that they've got them wrong, for sure. But you don't become as successful as those guys have done by being stupid. You know what you're doing. And now that they've got the footballing hierarchy in place, Vivell, Lawrence Stewart, Joe Shields is there as well, Paul Winstanley, all these guys are in place, the best at what they do in their field. Like those things are there. We've got some of the best young players in the world. Those things are there, but it's hard to back the project when, in our time following Chelsea, there's never been any project or any backing of a project. It's always been get rid of the manager at the first time things go wrong. And it'll be really interesting for me to see when the new manager comes in and we go for a tough period, because we will, if the owners hold their nerve or not. I mean, how do you feel about it? I want to believe in it and I want to back it, but I still need to see a little bit more to be fully convinced.
I trust the owners to get it right in the end, but I also don't really believe in the concept of a project because I don't think it's necessary. And that's not to say it's not necessary across teams all across Europe, or even in the entire football pyramid. It's just when you're already an elite club, what are you progressing towards? When Chelsea were an elite
Well,
club, won the Champions League, came third last season,
I
scored
guess
122 goals.
I
So
guess progressing to a league challenge, a title challenge.
maybe, but that you don't really have you don't set up a project for that. You already
No,
should
maybe
be
not.
ready in place to go for that. Everything should be ready for that. Look at something more like what Arsenal have done as a project, right? And it's a rare example of a project at an elite level working really well. Because you've got someone like Arteta who was loved at the club. But remember where Arsenal were,
Or
eighth,
back to back eights.
yeah, back to back eighth. Before that, they weren't getting a sniff at the title under Wenger and Emery and everyone else for so long.
Well,
They
back
were
to back
actually,
eights, didn't they? Yeah, then they
yeah, and
missed
they were
out on the last. They missed out on the top four to Spurs last season.
exactly, and so they were down and out, and they were doing really badly. So that's what But for an extended period of time, I don't think Chelsea needed a project like that because we weren't down and out like that. Now we might need a project to get back to where we were now, very possibly.
Yeah.
But Chelsea are already an elite club that should be playing at the top echelons. I think a lot of the time, and this might sound a little bit controversial, that projects can sometimes be the phrase project and progress can be thrown around as an excuse for letting people do a bad job and giving the people slack for that. And I'm not sure that's totally fair, especially in terms of the Chelsea sort of mantra, win at all costs. It's naturally an impatient pressure cooker environment. I'm not entirely sure if this type of project would ever really work at Chelsea unless we were really struggling. It seems that
Well, we are struggling now.
well, we are struggling
Yeah.
now, but it seems to me that the concept of a project, like look at Man City, they had a project to get up to where they were with like Roberto Mancini. Then they brought in Pep to finish it off.
Yeah.
Right? They're not in a project anymore, are they? You
No.
can
Well,
argue about they
no.
have aspirations for the Champions League
Yeah.
and all of this stuff, but they're not a project club currently. They're just winning and they're just enjoying it. And that's the other thing as well. I think people tend to call things projects because they're doing well and they can see a natural progression because that's what happens when organizations work together for a long time and people in those organizations gel and get cohesive and get better at what they do. It's not necessarily a project, it's just people improving at their jobs. That goes from the
Yeah.
players to the owners to everyone else in the entire thing top down. I'm not sure it's necessary as a concept.
I mean, I would like to see us have a manager actually in place for more than 3 seasons. That would be quite nice. But that
it's
has to be
rare,
on,
isn't it?
but that has to be on merit as well. It's not just like
you need a unicorn manager for that. You need a Klopp or you need a Tuchel or
But I do believe
or a
that
Guardiola.
I do believe that someone like Nagelsmann, if it ends up being him, and I hope it is personally in my opinion, that he could be the guy that could be here for 3-4 seasons. Like, I think we do need to get to a point where that we get out of this mindset of at the first time things go wrong, we just get rid of the manager. Because every manager is going to go through bad periods managing a football team, and they're going to have bad runs of results. And it's about allowing them the ample time to get out of that. And what I would say with these owners is they will give managers as much time as possible to get out. On the evidence we've got,
Look how much time they gave Potter.
They gave Potter so much time. They were desperate for it to work with
Potter
Graham
could have been
Potter.
sacked before the World Cup, and nobody really would have
complained. Easily, mate, easily. And so these owners will give a manager time. So I do have faith in that sense that a new manager that comes in when things get tough, they will be given as much time as needed to try and turn it around.
But also at the same time, do you worry about that approach meaning that we might see more seasons like this, where actually they hold on too long, and in fact they had the chance to save the season, and now it's gone.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I don't know.
You need to know when to pull the trigger, and it's difficult.
That's the thing. But you've also got to have a plan in place, and I think this situation we're in now goes to show that sacking Graham Potter was not part of the plan, and there was no plan to it.
Obviously not.
And that's why we're in this interim situation, because we didn't have anyone lined up, or we thought, there's a few very good managers out of work. It'll be easy to get them to come and join now.
But
And
you're
it
quite
wasn't.
right, though, in that the owners will give a manager more time because, if, say, for example, if Potter, when Lampard was first sacked, if Potter had that record, he'd still be in a job,
Yeah, he would be
and
still be in a job, yeah.
and any manager that comes in whose heart, worth his salt even a little bit, will be able to do better than that, ideally, better than Potter did. So, they really do have a good chance to stick around for a long time, because if you win 8 games in 21, that's twice as better.
Well, exactly. I mean, yeah, look, it's tricky. It's tricky. Let me get to a few things in the chat, and then we'll just rattle through these player ratings very quickly. What we got here. Madueke, Mudryk, Chukwuemeka, we don't have enough space to field a team full of prospects. No, we don't.
You're right. They need to go on loan.
Personally, Enrique, hope it's him. I am a little bit dubious on Enrique. I'm not sure how good he actually is. I find it very difficult to judge someone's managerial ability of working with the best Barcelona team of all time.
And also no club football in 6 years.
No club football in 6 years. And you have to go back to almost 10 years ago when he was at Roma, and he wasn't very good, and he wasn't amazing at Celta Vigo either. And he's not done the best with Spain. Like, I'm not knocking him. He's clearly a good manager, but I have my question marks over him because he's not.
And there's question marks over Nagelsmann as well.
Yeah,
because
there's going to be question marks over every manager.
He's young and he's green, and he's essentially a green Potter with slightly better credentials. It's not an easy decision that's going to be made. That's partially another good reason why they got Frank coming in, because they know it's a difficult decision, and so hopefully they're going to make the right one.
Yeah, need buy some time.
My gut feeling is it will probably be Nagelsmann because he's worked with Vivell before.
Yeah, I think Lawrence Stewart's worked in a Red Bull hierarchy before, as has Vivell. They're big Nagelsmann backers. But ultimately, the final decision will sit with the board, but they'll obviously be fed the information from the guys that are conducting the interviews and whatnot.
I think it's Winstanley and Stewart, though, are actually running the search for the new coach.
Yeah, they're running the search, yeah. Rain, appreciate you tuning in. This, as much as it sounds great and it's a great story and the romantic side of it's great, the reality of the situation is it's a no-go. That book needs to remain closed to me. As much as I'd love it, the book does need to remain shut. I mean, Ollie, do you feel the same on the Jose thing?
Wouldn't mind having him around the club, but as a coach, no.
No, that book needs to remain close to me. Like, I love him, but it's not the right answer.
There's a fairy tale world where you sign him back and he goes on to absolutely trounce everyone with the team we've got. But it is just that. It's a fairy tale. And when you're picking, sporting stuff on sentiment, when you're making those big decisions on sentiment,
you can't make it on sentiment.
You're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah, he is a winner. Yeah, sure, he is, but he's not the answer to what Chelsea are looking to do, and that's the reality of the situation.
And the other thing as well is I don't want people coming and saying with their necessarily with their suggestions and then going, oh well, it's better than Potter. Yeah, but like a headache is better than a lobotomy, but you don't want either of them.
No, I mean the bar to having a new manager shouldn't just be, oh, he's better than Potter.
He's better than our worst manager of all time.
Yeah, statistically. That's not where we're at. Tito Martino for Barca, also the best squad yet, wasn't successful. I mean, they still won stuff. Look, I mean, I'm not saying Enrique's bad. I just have more question marks over him than I do Nagelsmann.
I'm pretty split on them both, to be honest. I think Enrique's probably the better coach, and Nagelsmann fits the project, I guess, that we're trying to do.
I think he fits the brief more. I guess.
So it's about which one of those is more important to you, about who you like more. So
I guess so. I mean, mate, let's get into these ratings then. Let's rattle through these fairly quickly. Guys, keep smashing the likes on the stream. We are 5 likes away from 30, so there's still over 20 of us in here. So make sure you hit the likes and get those likes to 30 as quickly as possible, guys. And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. Ollie, let's get into this, mate. Kepa didn't actually have that, and guys in the chat, get involved in the player ratings as well. Kepa, he wasn't that bad yesterday. Didn't actually really have anything to do. There's nothing he could do about the goal. Yes, distribution at times was quite poor, and I felt it had a few nervy moments. But outside of that, it wasn't an awful performance. Like, it's not like he's cost us like anything in the game really. I mean, I'd probably just say he was average.
Well, funnily enough, this is one of the very rare times, Charlotte, that you and I disagree.
Ah.
Because I don't know if it's because you were watching in the stadium and I was watching on telly.
So I haven't watched the highlights back. I haven't put
But
myself through it.
from the goal specifically,
Yeah.
wonderful strike. Brilliant goal. But Kepa gets his fingertips to it.
Does he?
He does, yeah, and
Oh, I didn't
he
see that. I
sets
haven't watched it
himself
back.
too early. It's the same old story with Kepa again, where he makes shots that probably most other keepers, top flight keepers, would save it. Makes them look unsavable. And so the goal was good, but I think Mendy saves it. I think probably at least, I don't know, the top 8 goalies in the league save it. The fact of the matter is you can't really rely on Kepa. He's a little bit too short. He sets himself too early for long shots, and that means people are always going to shoot at him. And if it's on target, a lot of the time he's too slow and it goes in. And I know people saying that it's a screamer and he didn't touch it. He did get his fingertips on it. If you watch the goal back in very, very slow motion, he just about gets it. And bear in mind, it also goes in the side netting. If you get any more contact on that, it's not going in. It's going to hit the post or go around the post. For me,
Yeah.
for me, it's one of those where people go, "Oh, it's unsavable," because it looks unsavable. But if you really, really look at it, it isn't. It's perfectly savable. I think Mendy
Yeah.
saves it. And for me, I think that's poor from Kepa. I don't think he should have been left in that situation to save that in the first place, but it's also an acute angle on the volley going across his body. He should be saving it, regardless of, how sort of a wonder strike it is. For me, I'll give him a 3, other than that, he didn't really do anything.
No, there wasn't anything else. There wasn't really anything else to do. Let's meet in the middle. I'll go with a 4. I mean, that's not actually meeting in the middle, but I think 4's fair. I'll come down 1. And
yeah, I'll go up 1.
That's cool. By the way, guys, 5 likes away from 30 likes. So keep hitting those likes. Let's get those likes to 30. It's not much to ask, and it does really help me out. Reece James, I've got to be honest, mate. I thought this was one of his worst games for Chelsea in quite a while.
I thought he struggled. He did well to get the ball. Like he got down the flank a bit, crossed the ball in, looked dangerous. But you're right, he still doesn't look 100%.
And there's a lot of crosses and free kicks were overhit. Yes, he struggles in a as a flat right back in a 4 because it doesn't allow him to get forward as much. Corners weren't beating the first man either from James. He just looked a bit off it. He just wasn't there. I'd give him a 5.
I think maybe that's a tiny bit harsh. I would say probably give him a 6 because I thought his corners were poor. His corners were poor, distribution not what we expect, but he was one of the only people trying to get the ball in the box.
Yeah.
And he overlapped on that right-hand side a good few times, especially towards the end of the game in the second half as well. Made some good chances that probably should have been put away. And there was one in the first half as well, put right across sort of the corridor of uncertainty. Nobody picked it up.
No one there to put it away.
It's the story of Reece James, isn't it? Where nobody's regging the runs to actually get on the end of his decent passes. And so not his best game. Arguably one of his worst games, but nowhere near as bad as anyone else. I don't think.
No, I think we'll go 5.5. Let's go to the left-hand side. Cucurella, it wasn't great from him. Again, as we touched on earlier, this constant changing of formations and changing of positions actually doesn't help you find any rhythm as a player, and particularly when you're struggling. The last thing you want is to be playing a different position every time you step on the pitch. So I do feel from a little bit in that sense, but again, it wasn't the best from him. You could say that he was at fault for the goal partly. I don't think he defended particularly well. I'll probably just give him a 4. It was just one of those afternoons for him.
I'd go lower than that. I would give him a 2 because I think he's more at fault for the goal than Kepa is. Because it's a good strike. But Cucurella, he's not tight enough to his man. He's caught ball watching. The communication with him and Koulibaly again is poor. And ultimately he's just listen. I think Cucurella seems like a nice bloke, but I don't think he's anywhere near good enough to be a Chelsea starting player. I think he's consistently poor, shows flashes of good play, but I think Brighton and Getafe are his level, and that's where he should have stayed.
How do you think he would have done at City, out of interest? Because if Brighton had accepted their offer,
maybe better, maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but certainly in this Chelsea squad, he has not proved that he's worth even half of what we paid for him. At least not to me. He's had maybe 3 decent games since he signed for us.
yeah,
Dortmund probably his best game for us. Hasn't really
he was
touched that level.
very good there. Yeah,
He's probably been half as good as that on average for the rest of the time. And listen, I know it's partially the circumstances as well. Like we were saying with the formations and changing the tactics all the time and the managers and stuff. I'm sure that's not helping him, but he's got to do better at the basics, and he's not getting it right. For me, he wouldn't start for the rest of the season, even though we don't have many centre backs for the Champions League. I would give him a 2 or even a 1. I thought everything he tried to do the other day was really, really poor.
I mean, I think it's clear he's going to play on Wednesday night. Well, actually, I don't. Well, it depends. If we play a 4, he won't play.
Oh, Benzema's going to tear him apart.
If we play a 3, I think he'll have to play.
Yeah, probably. If we play a 4, he's going to be isolated against who do they play on the right?
He won't play if we play a 4 because Chile will play.
I hope so.
No, Chilwell will play. I'm almost certain of that. Let's go to the centre backs quickly. Then Koulibaly. It wasn't awful, but again, just like lack of communication, really. He just looks like at the moment, he just looks like someone that's always got a mistake in him. He just feels a little bit nervous when he's on the ball.
That whole left side of the defense is panicky. The second I saw this lineup and I saw those two were on the left in a flat back 4, I went, this is going to be a disaster because there was no one to protect them, and they don't communicate well for whatever reason. I don't know why they keep getting played next to each other. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke, and it's a mistake, a big mistake.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, what did you make of Koulibaly? I mean, I'd probably say maybe a slightly better than Cucurella, but
yeah, 4, maybe 4.5. Like other than for the goal, he did fine. But
we need a bit more than that. We need a bit more than that.
I have absolutely no confidence in him. Not really.
Actually, let's move on to Wesley Fofana. Obviously, he went off towards the end. I don't think it's nothing serious or anything like that. He's fine. I think they said afterwards. As I said at the top of the show, the only player that can come out with any sort of credit really from this game. I love him. I think he's great. I actually think he's a much better defender in a 3. I enjoy watching him more in a 3 as well. I think it works better for him.
He's better at stepping out, and he can use his pace a little bit more. You've got to be a little bit more careful in a back 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably give Fofana a 6. I thought he was solid yesterday.
I'll go far as to say 6.5 because I think he was our best player.
I was going to say I think he was our best player as well.
Shepherded everything basically down that side. Did a good enough job when called upon. Nothing special, but compared to everyone else, he looked.
Oh, mate, compared to everyone else, it was night and day. It was night and day compared to everyone else. It really was. Right, guys, 3 more likes to the big 30. Make sure you get them. Let's get us there. 3 more
only
likes
takes
to go.
2 seconds, people.
It takes 2 seconds, people. Let's get it
and
to
it costs
30,
you nothing.
Guys. It's free as well. And you get to listen to us on a Sunday night, which is what more would you want to be doing?
Yeah, what more could you possibly want?
Enzo, playing in that 6 that we talked about earlier on, not his ideal position, but needs must at the moment. He was having to come so deep yesterday, almost acting as a third centre-back to even just get on the ball. There were some nice switches of play, some nice kind of cross-field passes from him, and I felt he did okay. He did well in the midfield, but again, he didn't have that much influence higher up the pitch because of where he was playing. But I think after Fofana, I think he was our next best player on the pitch. I'd probably give him a 6. He was just hampered by having to play so deep.
I'll give him a 5 because I thought he was quite average, at least for his standards. Maybe his standards, are high because we know he's a phenomenal player. But I think he really didn't influence or affect the game all that much. So I'd probably give him a 5. I
think he struggled, didn't he? Because of how
I don't think he did better than James did.
No, maybe not. I think Endo just kind of. I thought he was good, but it wasn't like amazing. I do think having to play so deep really didn't help him.
Oh yeah, some good switches of play, but it's just like him playing so deep. It kind of mitigates. It's the same as when you play James as a centre back. It kind of mitigates their attacking threat quite a lot when you have to play him.
You don't allow Enzo to get higher up the pitch and pick those balls into the box like we've seen him do for Havertz, like we've seen him do for Felix. He doesn't allow him to use his range of passing or his ability to thread a pass as much.
And let's be honest, he's not the best defensively. So having him as the deepest lying midfielder is always going to end in tears.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't awful yesterday, but yeah, not one of his better games by his high standards. Moving on to Cover, who actually in recent weeks has been a lot better than towards the kind of start of the season. I think he's done better. This was one of his worst games in a while for me. Just didn't really do anything. I can't really remember anything half decent he did. It was just one of those days for him. It really was.
Just nothing went right for him. I think he had a bit of an uptick in form when Potter gave him the captain's armband for a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He kind of looks like the same old Kovacic, where it all looks kind of flash and interesting, and then there's nothing that comes from it. It's quite similar to Felix in a way.
It wasn't the best yesterday, Cover.
No,
I'd probably say
not.
4.
Yeah, 4.5 maybe, because I don't think he affected the game poorly.
Not 44.5 there.
That's a high score.
Yeah.
I don't think he affected the game poorly. I just think he maybe, he just didn't really get to do much of what he wanted to do, and is what it is. Bit of a referee's performance from Coventry.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Gallagher in the starting lineup, but I think by all accounts because A, Kante was left out the squad, and B, because Mason Mount wasn't fit. I think we would have known that Frank would have started Mount in this position. But
has an abdominal injury apparently.
Yeah, we started Gallagher. And as I said at the top of the show, one thing you do get from Gallagher is effort and energy, and he puts himself about. But sometimes it's often with very little conviction or direction. He's
a bit of a nuclear warhead, isn't he? You just got to point him in the right direction.
I mean, there were some good bits, but ultimately for me, it was just a nothing performance, really. He just didn't do anything. Like, he tried to get involved in the game. He tried to get, he got down that right flank quite well. He found himself in some half decent positions at time, but yeah, there just wasn't really anything there. And
for me, it's quite similar. I thought, I'm maybe not quite as harsh. I thought he did reasonably well. First start in a while. Offered exactly what we said he would, that energy and that running, and nobody expects him to be a master on the ball at this point, I don't think.
No.
And, made some good passing moves in and around the edge of the box as well. I think he was trying to make things happen. I think more than Gallagher having actually a bad performance, I actually think he was more let down by the attackers ahead of him.
I would agree as well. When you're playing, I think it's important point there as well, mate, that like when you're playing in midfield, you're only as good as what's ahead of you. If no one's making good runs, if no one's giving you options, or if your passes are being, you pass into feet up front and it's just being given away straight away, or no one's reading where you're putting the ball, then your performance looks a lot worse than it perhaps actually is.
Someone said Gallagher is the Forrest Gump of the side. He does like to run. He does
like to run. You get energy, but I think I give Gallagher a 4. I think a 4 is fair.
I think 4.5 is fair. I don't think he had a worse game than Kovacic.
No, I would say not. Let's move on to Felix. Now, Felix again, one of those guys that started in multiple positions across the front line. What I would say is, despite his lack of output, he yesterday and just in general, I feel like he's the only one that really tries to actually make anything happen in that front line.
He always seems to be in like a decent pocket of space,
but no one picks him out.
And I think he started at times out on the whole front three moved around a lot during the game.
Yeah, it was a mess.
He was on the left
right,
then
right, then middle. Yeah,
yeah. Sterling was, I think, a false 9 at one point as well. Like, so there was a lot going on. Thought Felix was actually picked up some half decent positions, but it's the same old story. Whenever he gets it, does some dribble, looks a bit flash, no end product.
No end product's a big problem.
It's the story of Felix. But but at the same time, I don't think we can count him too harshly for just being ignored, while being in a decent position. A lot of the time. But at the same time, he himself was ignoring people like Gallagher at times, who was making a late run into the box and he'd shoot himself.
I just think
he's quite a selfish player.
I think it goes back to that thing again where there's just a complete lack of cohesion and chemistry in this team. No one's really on the same page as anyone else. And that's no more apparent than in the front line. No one's got any idea what the other players in the front line are doing.
It also goes back to saying, that nobody's got any confidence. Felix, over at one point, there was one point where we started a move. We made a breakaway. We were 2-on-1. I think it was Havertz. I think it was someone, whoever was playing on the right wing, maybe Felix, maybe it was James, I can't remember. And Havertz in the middle, and Felix was coming up the rear. And despite the fact we were 2-on-1, did we try and like whip it into the box for Havertz? We made like 3 or 4 passes around the edge of the box. Then someone shot and it went miles over the bar.
A complete lack of penetration or
I think it was
edge,
Chilwell who took the shot in the end. It was just like there was no need, like that. I think sometimes we need to play this more kind of not fully route one style, but we need to be so much more direct. It seemed at times that people were afraid to shoot. And that's one thing I do like about Felix, is he's not afraid to shoot, but he just always seems to have someone in his way. I'm not sure he's picking up the best positions in the box, but just outside it, he does quite well. So I don't know. On balance, I think he was probably maybe the best of the front three, maybe, but that's not really saying much. I'll give him
quite a low bar.
A 4 probably.
Yeah, I'd say a 4 is fair. Let's move on to Raheem Sterling. First start for a while. This was awful.
Literally, this was a terrible decision.
This was awful. I mean, I did pick him to start in the preview, but because that's what I thought Lampard would do. But yeah, Sterling just looked off it by quite some.
But why would you expect? He's played 10 minutes since he came back from his injury. He's not going to be fully fit.
No, he's not. But he just offered nothing, absolutely nothing. It was an awful performance. And what I would say is that, we give Havertz stick and the like. Sterling this season, from expectation in the summer to what's actually happened, he's been such a disappointment.
Yeah, real disappointment. We expected to see more leadership. We expected to see more clutch goals, even tap-ins and stuff. And he scored a couple at the start, and it just never went anywhere, did it?
Someone that came here saying he wanted to be the main man. Like, he's done nothing. He's literally contributed nothing really this season.
How many goals has he scored? Like 4?
He did get the crucial opener in the Dortmund second leg. I'll give him that. But ultimately, over the course of the season so far, this move has been such a disappointment.
For decent money as well, especially when you're buying from a Premier League rival, especially when you're buying from a very successful Premier League rival, you expect those players to do well. Especially, he's the highest paid player at the club, £325,000 a week. Needs to see more from him. And yesterday, don't fully blame him for his performance because I don't think he's fully fit. But in that case, that's also on Lampard. He shouldn't have played. At least shouldn't have started.
No, he shouldn't have done. I'd say it was worse than Felix. I'll give him a 3.
Yeah, I'll give him maybe a 3.5 because I think he was better than Cucurella, or maybe.
I personally think Mudryk should have started yesterday, but I mean, that's another conversation.
I'm with you. And then at some point we had Pulisic come on before Mudryk, and I thought, my God, what is going on?
What's going on? Let's round it out then. Kai Havertz. I'll be honest, mate, there's quite a few to choose from. This, I feel, could be one of the worst Kai Havertz performances I've ever seen.
It was poor, wasn't it?
It was so bad. And I almost allowed myself to be sucked in by his kind of March purple patch where he bags a couple of pens and a goal.
You always seem to do well in March.
Yeah, a goal here or there. But let's be real. This guy is not good enough to play for this club. We've got a big enough sample size to show that he is not cut out to play for Chelsea. And he's not cut out for the Premier League.
Certainly not in that striker position.
God,
it's not good. Get anyone else.
Yeah, but he's not good in any of the other positions either. Yes, he was a bit more effective in that right channel, but realistically, the fact of the matter is that 3 seasons in, we are still discussing where the best place to put Havertz is. Goes to show that he's not done anything to show anyone what his best position is and where he should be playing.
Listen, if he hadn't scored the UCL final winning goal, he wouldn't be here.
Mate, I'll be honest, mate. This might sound mad. I think he's one of our worst signings we've ever made.
Man, I think that's a little harsh, but I can see the logic.
Well, no, not in terms of obviously he's not like a Lukaku, etc. But in terms of actual return for the money we've paid and the expectation and the
amount of chances he's had,
and the amount of chances and stuff. The guy's played pretty much the whole season in the number 9 position and has
in 3 seasons in a row, and he's never got more than 8 goals.
He's got 7 Premier League goals this season. And you're playing most of your minutes at number 9. And I know we don't create a lot of chances. I know we're not a team that scores a lot of goals, but yes, he comes up clutch in certain moments, particularly in Champions League, seems to bring a bit more out of him. But this was terrible yesterday. And like, he's just not good enough. He's a player that will go and do well somewhere else. But this Chelsea is not for him.
Yeah, I would say the same. Again, and he's kind of the ultimate version of that kind of positionless player and what we were talking about earlier about, how he's kind of a master, jack of all trades, but master of absolutely none. And yesterday, it was another episode of Kai the Friendly Ghost for me. Really, really was barely involved, and when he was, it was poor. So,
Yeah.
I think Cucurella was our worst player yesterday. I do, but I think Havertz was easily up there with him. I would give him a 3.
Yeah, I think they were equal. They were terrible. Yeah, not a good day yesterday. Not a good day at all.
That might be one of the lowest performances actually in terms of in terms of
yeah, I mean
score that
Southampton.
we've done. It'd be good
Southampton
if
could
at the end of the
definitely.
season, if you got time, you should tally them all up and actually figure out what, according to everyone you've had on your show, what the best performance was.
Yeah,
and
or
the
what
worst.
I mean, it
Well, the
would
average,
take.
yeah, who played
I
the
mean,
best?
it would take me a long time to do. But if I'm bored on a rainy day, I'll just go back to all the player ratings, add up everyone's rating, and then divide it over their appearances and work out what their average performance is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I may well do that. But yeah, wasn't the best of days yesterday. Seems like a good point to round this one out. Disappointing for Chelsea, disappointing start for Frank Lampard. The task doesn't get any easier. The Burnabout up next on Wednesday night. Please, can we just at least be still in the tie?
Let's just be
the second leg.
Can we have Champions League Chelsea turn up?
Yeah, well, just any Chelsea turn up. Can we just turn up? Full stop. If we just turn up to this game, that would be a plus. But yeah, let's wait and see what happens on that one, guys. I'll be back with a Real Madrid preview, most likely on Tuesday, maybe tomorrow. Let's wait and see. I'll have a think about it. I'll make a decision tomorrow, but it'll be Monday or Tuesday for the Real Madrid preview, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for getting involved in the chat as always. Massively appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your evening. If you've got the day off work tomorrow in the UK or wherever you are in the world, then please do enjoy it.
Yeah, take a rest. Look after yourselves.
Yeah,
it's a hard world out there, especially if you're a Chelsea fan right now. Look after yourself.
Enjoy the sunshine if you've got it. But yeah, guys, on the way out, smash the likes on the stream if you haven't done so already. Let's get a few more likes on there. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already as well. I'm edging closer to 3K now, just about 300 subs to go. So that's going to be done before the end of the season. But if you're in now and you're not subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button, guys. Loads of great content from myself and plenty of guests as well, if I don't say so myself. So, yeah.
The guests are very handsome.
They are. Yeah, it's a great looking panel tonight. Great looking panel. But yeah, guys, smash the like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and your day off tomorrow if you've got it. And I'll be back on Tuesday. I keep saying things will get better. They haven't done, but if I keep saying it, eventually it will come true. So, guys, things are going to get better for us. But yeah, until then, take care and up the Chelsea.